on this Wednesday. A lot going on, and we're going to get right to it. I hope you had a good overnight. Here we are. We do have some rain in the area, milder temperatures, even milder tomorrow for Thursday in our region. A little bit of rain coming in, maybe some winds tonight, overnight. But we begin our Wednesday morning reacting to the president's speech address to Congress last night. We'll get to that in a minute. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker, live, and he was there in person, obviously covering it inside the Capitol, front and center. We're also going to update you and update on veterans care here in the Granite State in this hour. We're going to be also hearing more about our cowboy trip. We got that open house tonight, B&H Stage, 6 p.m. this evening, B&H Stage, right on South Main Street in Concord, right? Not, part of the Capitol Center for the Arts. Great facilities. The B&H Stage, 16 South Main Street, 6 o'clock tonight. Andrew will be in our studios telling us what we're going to see tonight. It's free and open to the public if you want to go with us, and our friends from Colette Travel, October 7th, as we go out west, starting in Yellowstone National Park and ending in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. All right. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Good morning up into Maine. Good morning, Lakes region, Manchester, Concord. We have you covered, blanketed everywhere and everywhere else. Hey, Alexa, worldwide. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. So already today, believe it or not, the Commerce Secretary for the president, after last night's address, is saying the president could back off some of the tariffs today. He's having a talk today with Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada, and we'll see where this goes. But what a night last night, John Decker. J-Dog, let me know when John's on, please. He'll be calling in a moment. What struck me on the president's address last night was just how divided right down the middle. I mean, very divisive in terms of Congress. They had to remove one member, Democrat, who stood up and was out of line based on how they're supposed to behave. It was interesting. The Democrats that were there, it was a very unusual thing visually if you watched it. The Democrats were there. Many boycotted and did not go. But the ones that were there were a lot of just all you saw really are sort of pink outfits. And the Democrats would hold up a sign the whole time, just a sign they're holding up. False, or on the back of the sign it read Musk steals, and they'd hold up these false signs throughout the entire address, the entire speech. You just hold up, they wouldn't stand, they would hold up these signs basically saying false on the front and Musk steals on the flip. So very interesting. And at one point, you just heard the clip with President Trump saying, there's nothing I can say for these Democrats to make them happy. Basically, I could cure the world's worst disease, end all wars. There's nothing I can do to make them happy. And yet there were some moments that struck me towards the end. But John Decker, our own White House correspondent, joining us. And I guess we're going to have a trivia question, and it's a good one. I do not know the answer. And we'll tell you our poll question on X in a moment, which is simply the Pulse of an H. Did you watch and did you approve of the speech? John Decker's question is, who started the tradition of paying tribute to certain people in the First Lady's box? And I guess the only way I'd answer that, John, is does this go back a real long way or not that long? Well, if you put it that way, I was I was pretty much on the young side during Reagan. So was it Bush Sr.? Was it Reagan? Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, no, go ahead. Share with our listener. I'm just chuckling. Yep. 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 Yeah, I remember Reagan, but of course Reagan had a sense. He had a real sense, like Trump, of kind of the optics. So, John, you were there. it just struck me how the bizarre thing watching it versus listening, because it's always a difference. People remember the Kennedy Nixon debates. Those who listened to it on radio saw a different debate than those who watched it. But in terms of the speech, Republicans loving it, embracing it from the beginning. We've done more in 4 weeks and most administrations in 4 years and going. We're just getting going. The Democrats, many of them wearing pink and holding up the signs false, and not a lot of them there. It was just a bizarre optic. Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting. There's some moving balls in the air this morning. The Commerce Secretary, morning after, which I think is unusual because I think last night President Trump was laying things down the way in his leadership he sees things domestically and abroad. He went through everything. And the Commerce Secretary already this morning, because he defended the tariffs. He talked about progress already. He mentioned Honda moving a plant to Indiana. But already the Commerce Secretary this morning saying the president could lift these tariffs as early as today. Yeah, interesting. John Decker gets arrested, our own White House correspondent, going back to Reagan. Thanks. So, I'm gonna try to speak from the heart, which is not always the probably the easiest. It's not the easiest thing to do when you do what I do on a show, but I think it works because that's how I do it. I am who I am. You are who you are. You feel the way you do, and I may feel the way I do on certain things. And if you feel it, it's real to you, and it's real to me. I'm very cognizant, like John Decker just said. President Trump's very aware of some things. I'm very cognizant of folks who are very unnerved, very upset, incredibly upset. And I'm not going to gauge whether you should be that upset at all the stuff that's happening so quickly with the new Trump administration. There's a lot of people that are very fearful, and I am not going to be one of these glib or um, one of these hosts who's going to be a blind eye to that, because I'm just going to point this out. The same people who are very afraid and nervous right now may not realize that other those of others, maybe me included, and some other people in the audience may have been just as afraid when a different administration was in there in the past doing things the opposite way of what they felt or wanted. And unfortunately, that's politics. The divisiveness today, everyone wants to lay on Donald Trump's doorstep. And I got to tell you, it started a lot. It's interesting. John Decker, our White House correspondent, mentioned Ronald Reagan. Liberal reaction to Reagan was vehement. It was venomous. It was unbelievable, beyond vitriolic. They ridiculed Eureka College, a community college, or the college he went to. They made fun of him. He was just a dumb actor. And it went, and things went on. Probably wasn't as bad during the Bush senior first term. Bill Clinton's, it probably wasn't as bad because Clinton appealed to a lot of people in the middle, despite a lot of the stuff during his presidency. And then if you wind it right on forward, um, George W. Bush, the Obama presidency, the Biden Harris last 4 years, things don't always go your way. And that's true at a state level and a federal. So I'm not diminishing how freaked out some people are. I can't say I understand it at all, because I think Trump is getting things done that he talked about and people voted on November 5th. And I think the only subject, and I just brought it up with John Decker, that I've been rather, wondering about because I'm acutely aware of inflation and high prices here in New England, and I don't think we can make it worse. And I know a lot of people have been freaking out about their 401ks and the market the last 2 days with the talks of tariffs on Canada and Mexico and China. And I just understand what the president is trying to do. And on paper, it looks good because he's trying to get things made here again, incentivize and motivate American manufacturers to stop exporting and make more stuff here. As Mike Rowe from America's Dirtiest Jobs and his foundation on work points out, there are already a lot of jobs available, and Americans, especially for some reason, males are not filling them. We're talking manufacturing jobs. But the point is, I understand what the president is trying to do. What I worry about is how long it's going to take to get the gain from tariffs, because when you place tariffs on a country, they may respond. You get into short-term trade war, and you may get more out of it, but it's painful for a while. The president talked about it last night, so I think he's aware of that. But the rest of it, what I don't understand, and I don't think, but it's not my job. It is not my job as I sit here to think about being a political strategist on what the Democrats should do or how they should act on a night like last night when the president's addressing Congress. Not officially as a State of the Union, but it was kind of like I remember my UVM days. It wasn't de facto State of the Union, but it was de jure State of the Union. In other words, kind of was. And what I don't understand is in the Democrats, I can get them not applauding, the tariff stuff, not applauding a lot of the federal uh, Elon Musk stuff, who was there and recognized more than once by the president, and Democrats who are worried about, a lot of the federal waste being exposed. They don't really like it, and they're worried about, the impact on things like, programs here in New Hampshire that are subsidized by federal dollars if things are cut, like you've heard Democrats mention Medicaid. You've heard other people mention other programs. So I understand that. I don't think they were right on freaking out that we are placating and appeasing Putin that much in Russia when it comes to Ukraine. I totally understand what the president's trying to do, and he will get Ukraine to the table. They'll sign that deal because Ukraine needs the money, and I don't think he's wrong to play hardball and get an end of the war. So that's just me. But the one that I don't understand is last night. I'm watching this towards the end because it was a long address. It was long. And a couple times the president, there were people there, mothers and sisters of Lake and Riley, who was brutally murdered by a scumbag who was an illegal migrant who had a criminal record, basically like a thug gang member, this young, beautiful nursing student. So the mother and the daughter are there. And then there was another mother. I don't know, can't remember the exact context because at this point, I was actually trying to get to bed, but I couldn't stop watching it because of the show this morning. Plus, I think it's important to watch. And the president was talking about the Venezuelan gang from Aurora, Colorado, New York City, now spread across America, and how they've really broken that up with ICE agents. And they had, I guess, raped or done something terrible to this woman's daughter who was there. And the president made a plea to her. And I think it was when he actually said that her daughter was killed. And don't hold me to this. It was actually a very warm moment where president's pointing, as John Decker pointed out, the original tradition of people there and guests. It goes back to Reagan, I guess, with the first lady. The president's pointing to this woman, this grieving mother whose daughter was murdered. And apparently she loved animals where they lived, like, loved the zoo or animals. So the president's going to name the park or the zoo or whatever. You're getting my point. I don't know. The specifics may not matter as much after this young girl. And the mother was crying and tearful. And you think that the Democrats who were sitting there with their little signs, false Musk steals, sitting there holding up their signs like the whole time, it looked rather childish to me. But you think they could have at least stood up or clapped when the president was acknowledging this mother, or the young cancer patient who wants to be a police officer. He's battling cancer, and he was there with his dad, and he's holding up his he's just a little kid battling cancer, and they couldn't clap, they couldn't stand. That is petty. That is petty. And that doesn't really serve the Democrat Party well because all they do is look like a bunch of whining kids. I'm sorry, but that's what it looks like. Some commentary 603 228 2080. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a few. All right, we are back on this Wednesday. J Dog looks like some rain in the area, but things really warm up or get mild tomorrow, right? Yeah. It's t- yeah, it's gonna come quick. Hey, we have a lot going on time of year, J Dog. March is a transitional month, isn't it? I mean, when you look at the lull, I don't think people realize it's kind of a depressing. I'm not saying not everyone's a National Football League fan, But we don't realize when that whole season and the Super Bowl's over, our distraction or entertainment distractions are less, even if you're a hockey fan. By the way, I'm just gonna come out and say it, J-Dog, I know it's ancillary. I know on a scale on a 10, it's not even a 1 unless you're a hockey fan. But you with your bet this podcast with CJ and your sports acumen, I'm gonna tell you, J-Dog, because I've been around a few more hockey rinks than you growing up, and I watched the Predators last night. We had the game for you here on the Pulse. J-Dog, the Bruins stink, and let me tell you why they stink. If you're coming off a nationally televised win against the Penguins on Saturday, yes, you've lost your captain, he's injured, Brad Marchand. You lose to the Minnesota Wild in a good tight game. You should control the game against the Nashville Predators. They've broken up their team. They got Stamkos, but he's older. They've broken up their team, J-Dog, okay? They should have walked all over them. The Bruins should have been a 5-1 game, Bruins, and they get shellacked. Now, the other thing, the problem the Bruins have, it may not be on the ice, J-Dog, and as much as I love Cam Neely, it's upstairs. It's upstairs. You look at how the Celtics adjusted with the right GM, okay? It's upstairs. They trade Trent Frederick. Now, you may not know who he is, J-Dog, but he's a 6'3" tough guy, okay? Anytime there's a scrap in the ice, J-Dog, he's there to protect whoever it is, and he'll drop his gloves, okay? But he's a big guy, and he plays his heart out. Trading him was stupid because you didn't even get any direct, tangible. I mean, it was one of these convoluted trades that had to involve the New Jersey Devils, the Edmonton Oilers, for a bunch of conditional draft choices. And you got a young 6'3" tough guy who's protecting your players. All the players love his attitude. He's an uplifting member, and you trade him? And that's why they lost last night. The morale's terrible, and they're losing it in the upstairs. They don't get it. The Bruins stink, and I'm sorry to say that. If I was the owner, I'd announce changes in the front office. I would just say, look, we need to bring in someone. I don't care if they're from the Detroit organization. Heck, J-Dog, the Columbus Blue Jackets are playing better, you know? Yeah. Mhm. No, they seem to be catching on, and they have fans are fired up. All right, we're already hearing, and we'll come back with this. Some murmurs today that the Commerce Secretary, and believe me, these things don't just happen randomly, is already out there saying that the president could lift some of these tariffs as early as today. I think they're talking about Canada because Mexico has not responded yet. The president there is just smart. I actually think the new president of Mexico, she's pretty bright. I'm just going to tell you, I think she's pretty adept, pretty smart. And I like how she just sort of waits. No knee-jerk stuff. She waits. She knows. And I think we'll see where this goes. That's just you heard it here. As far as the Ukrainian thing, I'm going to tell you again, public opinion divided, very divided. And yesterday, it was not an insignificant fact that President Zelensky put on that social media message, which basically said, what happened last Friday in the Oval Office was regrettable. He stopped short of saying, I was out of line, but basically he's saying it was regrettable. It didn't result in the outcome that he wanted. He now wants to work under this is what he said in social media, the great leadership of President Donald Trump on a mineral rights agreement, a truce, and an end to the war. He wants to work under the great leadership of Donald Trump. And then he goes out of his way to say, we are very appreciative and grateful to the American people for the support they have given us in this war. So he thanked the American people, which is what Trump wanted to do. Be more grateful, be more respectful. He did all three, which means he wants the deal. He wants the deal. He needs the economic deal as a step towards a bigger deal with the U.S. Plain and simple. All the people that were doing handstands, including those that went up to Vermont to try to disrupt J.D. Vance's family ski trip to Mad River or Sugar Bush, feel really good about it because really we didn't need the deal anyway. Ukraine does. So I don't know what you're so flipping upset about. And at the end of the day, and by the way, you don't even know when you were protesting in Vermont that Joe Biden lost it on Vladimir Zelensky in 2022. in a call where he had just informed the Ukrainian leader that the U.S. was giving more financial aid, and Zelensky wanted more, and he wasn't grateful. And Joe Biden lost it on the phone call, according to four staffers. It's an NBC News article. You can go check it. Four staffers said that President Biden lost it. He started yelling at Zelensky, saying, "You're not grateful. You should be thankful to the American people and show a little respect for our support." It's all Donald Trump was saying in that meeting Friday. It's all he wanted. So you can go protest JD's ski trip and jump up and down with your signs. And at the end of the day, we don't need the deal. And Ukraine will end up signing the deal because they need the money. They need more money from us. And you may not realize that, but they do. And another indirect thing from Friday is now European nations, European Union are standing up, and they're going to do more to protect the continent of Europe, and it may help Ukraine. So that's good if Europe does more. We've done a lot. We do a lot. And the final thing is all the people that are, President Zelensky went to London right after the blow up in the Oval Office over the weekend, and he met with the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and they all talked about how we're going to protect and stand with Ukraine and all those things. Finally, do you know that last year? I'm just saying, if you want to go up and disrupt, JD Vance's ski trip next weekend, if you're in that category, do you know that last year? Do you know that last year? Do you know that 2024? The European Union spent more money on fossil fuel and energy and oil and gas, propane, natural gas from Vladimir Putin. They spent more money buying his energy, which fueled the war. Let me repeat that. They spent more money buying energy from Russia and Putin, which makes them rich and funds the war in Ukraine, than they did supporting Ukraine in total aid last year. I don't know if you knew that. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. We're going to get an update in a little bit from the VA and a whole lot more. Keep it right here. I am one story on people that are worried about tariffs and the impact, especially with Canada, because of our contiguous neighborly perch here in the Northeast. So you look at states like New Hampshire and Maine. When you look at, we talked yesterday about this, and I talked about it a month ago. Irving Energy, Irving Oil, Irving Energy. What a foothold they have into our residential, commercial, Irving stations, gas pump, just filling up your rig already yesterday, sending out warnings. If these tariffs hit, your bills, what you pay will be adjusted. In other words, you'll pay more. There's a lot of construction business ties to Canada from New England businesses. People, there are people. I used to have a buddy, or I'm sorry, I still have a buddy, but he used to have a business he sold, kind of a trucking the materials for concrete back and forth to Canada. So all these jobs, all these things are impacted by the possibility of a trade war with Canada. And the president did last night address the tariffs as a powerful tool because he wants to make more things here in America. Now he'll say that it's because of the flow of bad stuff, including fentanyl, which is, by the way, huge. One of the biggest things this new administration has done effectively is really shut down the southwest border, the border with Mexico, because most of the fentanyl was coming in there, and unfortunately still will find a way to, but a lot less. That means less lives will have to be ruined by addiction or an overdose, and families, because it's god awful. Families that go through this when someone's addicted to a drug like fentanyl, synthetic fentanyl. So, but the Canadian border is not typically as porous or as significant of a problem when it comes to that. But a lot of manufacturing is done in Canada. A lot of U.S. stuff is made there, and the president's trying to make it here, and no one should be surprised by that. So he did stand by the tariff stuff, but I'm a little surprised this morning. The Commerce Secretary for President Trump is already saying this morning that the president could back off some of the tariffs today. They just went in Tuesday morning at midnight, you know? So I'm a little surprised that they're saying that today, but I think if you look at the Dow, the markets and how they reacted to the tariffs and the short-term impact on inflation, the president may, and I said this yesterday in my show. I said that, the tariff goals look good on paper. And a lot of things can look good on paper, but in reality, in reality it's different. And the short-term pain from tariff goals or tariff policy, because the tariffs are not a short-term thing. Tariffs result in the other country raising tariffs on you. You get into a mini trade war, and eventually the other side flinches, and you may get a better trade balance or trade deal. But it usually takes a year or two. And a lot of people don't have a year or two when you talk about inflation. And so the president's acutely aware of that, and he may not be able to affect the effectiveness of tariffs. Now, a lot of people like Warren Buffett and people I respect, they don't like tariffs at all. They think it's just a form of, unnecessary trade war, economic war. But the president's able to get things back in concessions, and certainly some trade is not balanced between countries. But I think I'm a little surprised this morning, I'll be honest with you, that I'm seeing on the news across the screens and on my alerts the Commerce Secretary saying President Trump could back off some of the tariffs today. And I'm surprised by that because I think last night the president was pretty bold when he was defending them. But he's also acutely aware of the markets, as John Decker, our own White House correspondent, had to say. So a lot going on out there as we get going, and we have a lot going on. And tonight will be fun because we're going to be hosting an open house at the B&H Stage, 16 South Main Street in Concord. Andrew and our friends at Collette Travel, I'll be there. We're talking about our cowboy trip this next fall, October 7th. And a lot of you have already signed up. And if you haven't, you can come. It's free and open to the public. They're going to have a presentation, like a little mini movie on Yellowstone. And it's going to be fun. And then answer questions about the trip. The trip is totally taken care of by Collette. That means the flights, the hotels, all the stuff you stress about, the reservations, the meals, the buses, the experts, the guides. And we're going to really cruise and see a lot. starting in Yellowstone and ending up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Go through the mountain passes, the switchbacks, see all that stuff, see the buffalo, see the museum, see the West. I love it. There's not a good Western that I won't watch. So that's pretty cool. When we get into the 10 o'clock hour this morning, we're going to get more analysis on all the above, but we're going to also have Jeremy Rosenthal. He's a great new feature, great new guest on our shows on Wednesdays. Legal headlines, looking at the legal news, these legal stories that you may not catch with everything else going on. We're also going to talk a little more about community colleges. Next Wednesday, we start our first segment with President Patrick Tompkins, New Hampshire Technical Institute, as we continue bringing back the trades in New Hampshire. We're going to have a monthly segment talking about young people going into community colleges for a 2-year associate's degree to work in the trades. And it's pretty cool. We're going to continue it. And we had Mike Rowe up here, and we'll get him on. And it's going to be a lot of fun because really the community colleges are where it's at in New Hampshire. And I think around the country, you're going to see this. But certainly here in New England or New Hampshire, our community colleges rock. That's where the marketplace is demanding more programs. That's where the employers are going to hire people. And that's where people that want to work are going to study. They can afford it, get a 2-year associate's degree. You can come out with no background in HVAC work or electrical work or heating and plumbing or remodeling or machine, technology with machine manufacturing, I'm saying now. And pretty much these employers will hire you even if you have no direct experience. But if you have the right attitude, you come out with your degree, they'll teach you what you don't know and what you need to know, and they'll pay you very, very well. And it leads to a career, like a career. And today with high tech, the one thing about high tech is, if Amazon decides to cut jobs in the Northeast, it's just a corporate decision and they cut jobs or they cut back. And if you look at, the trades and a lot of independently owned contractors, modelers, HVAC, plumbing and heating, electrical, those are usually privately owned, well-managed, well-run companies by really smart, good people and independent business owners. And they tend to take care of their employees because they're so precious to them. And it really is a career of peace of mind if you're willing to work. So we're bringing back the trades, and we're going to continue to do it. And the beacon of our higher education in New Hampshire is really the community college system. And it's no disrespect to the undergraduate 4-year colleges like UNH in Durham, Plymouth State, Keene State. They're great schools. I have a couple of kids that went through a couple of those schools. But that's not where the future growth is. And that's a sad fact or a true fact, but it's a real fact. The fact is a fact. That's not where the growth is. That's not where the enrollment, that's not where the student growth is. That's not where the tuition growth is. That's not where the bodies and the seats growth is. It's community colleges. So I think UNH, the system is already looking at a $20 million cut next year. $20 million bucks. That's a lot of money. Community colleges are growing. They're going up. The undergraduate for 4-year liberal arts colleges are going down. And that's this trend. Can't argue. It's like the tides. It's like trying to fight gravity or Mother Nature. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of NH. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back with an update from the VA next. One of the things that's hard in life for everyone is just how scattered everything is. What I mean by that is, you know, you may have your bank over here, your healthcare provider over here, your home stuff over here, and it's really hard to kind of integrate and keep track of things, and especially when it comes to healthcare. So what if it was actually integrated into a network? And what if it was for veterans? And that's pretty cool. Julie Vos, the acting director of the Manchester VA, has a great guest with the Veterans Integrated Service Network, a director, actually, Ryan. Julie, talk about what you're trying to do here with our guest for veterans. And thanks again. Good. No, it doesn't. Yeah. Right. What I like about it, Ryan and Julie, is it's innovative, and sometimes the best ideas are not an invention. It's innovation, right? It's thinking of something that's commonsensical that might make people's lives better and easier. So I guess the big thing is, Ryan, what are your challenges on how to get more veterans or families of veterans to take advantage of this? Hmm. Yeah, I like it. I like it. And then Julie, are you seeing younger veterans? Younger meaning maybe not like over 60. Are you seeing younger veterans in their 30s and 40s coming in? Good stuff. Any other, just a good time to get an update, Julie. And thanks, Ryan, for what you do. And Ryan, let me start with you. Thank you. And if people want to learn more on the integrated net, the services net, what's the best way? What steps should they take? Is it a phone call? Is it a website? Hmm. Right. And then, Julie, anything else? We got a minute or two. Anything coming up? March? Anything we should be aware of? I appreciate it both. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Ryan. Have a good Wednesday. Thank you. I didn't want to, it's a separate issue than the VA, but I'm just going to leave you on this note about common sense and innovation, two rare, precious, rare metals. Do you know that? And thank God for Tom. Um, thank God. Thank you. Thank God for Tom Raffio at Northeast Delta Dental, because what he and Mitch Correa and his team of orthodontists and dentists in the state, this network of, if veterans have no insurance to cover oral health because the VA doesn't cover oral health. Can you imagine that? Major oral health surgery. You got an impacted tooth, you got a problem. It can cause an infection, it can make you very sick. They don't even cover it. They tell me it's a congressional glitch. And you know what? I got to tell you, it should be fixed. So they're doing these procedures for free if the veteran has no insurance. You just call Tom at 603-223-1300. It has to be one of the most admirable things and programs that any business leader has done in any state in the United States of America. And yes, I'm biased because I love Tom and I do a lot with him in and out of the show. He's an energizer. He's a great sponsor, a great partner. But what they're doing is amazing. Instead of whining and pointing and blaming who's president or who's not, they put this network together of veteran friendly dentists in the state. And by the way, you know this, you can't go to see any doctor today or have any procedure done or any surgery done that's not in the thousands of dollars. And his board approves it, and these dentists they step up and do it, and it should be covered. So should the therapies that help PTSD and mental health for veterans should be federally covered. But you can't blame the VA because they don't set the policies and the rules. These outside things need to be fixed. Innovation, use your brains. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H back in a few.